always contemplating what to do in case happiness found you. Hey, come on, baby, follow me. I'm the pipeline. Follow me. I'm the pipeline, and I'll show you where it's
Welcome to the Meat and Potatoes podcast. I'm here with Ryan Jolley, who's the co-founder and CEO of ourlinQ. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks for having me here, Garrett.
You bet. All the way up from Richfield.
Yep, it was a great drive.
First guest from Richfield, Utah.
That's cool.
Yes, indeed. All right. Interesting story because we're talking about ourlinQ, which spun out of a civil engineering firm. Give us the backstory.
It did. So I guess the backstory, so I'm CEO and co-founder of ourlinQ. But to take it a little step back, I've spent my career working as a civil engineer. Graduated from Utah State University in 2003. Went to work at Jones & DeMille Engineering in 2007. And at the time, I was the 34th or 35th employee. And since that time, we've grown quite substantially. Currently, we are right around 150 employees. And as any company evolves and grows, there's a lot of challenges and things you have to address. And a few years back in 2016 and 17, we decided that one of the things that we wanted to address was how we reward our employees for doing a great job. And when I began working at the company, we had this cool little program that we just called profit sharing. And profit sharing was just simply a way of taking a little piece of the money we earned on a project and sharing it back to the project manager that managed that project. And when we were small and project managers did everything, you took on the project, you did it all, and you finished it yourself. It worked great. But as we grew and we kind of built teams around project managers, that little system didn't scale with our company. So we abandoned it, went completely away from it. And we went to a more subjective system where we just said, okay, the leadership group's going to use a few factors to try and determine how big of a reward or a bonus our employees got. And when we did that and went away from kind of the sharing of the profits, we kind of took profitability out of the equation. And what we saw is our company, our profit margins, declined over a couple-year period. Mm-hmm. And we were really concerned about that. So we said, you know what? We've got to figure out a better way to do this. So like anybody, you go to Google first and see what's out there, and there was nothing out there. So we said, you know what, we've got to build something on our own. So we got our leadership group together, did a strategic planning session around it, and came up with some really great ideas. And then we went back and tried to build a spreadsheet. And our great ideas didn't translate into a spreadsheet. It became way too cumbersome. So we went to our IT manager and other employee and said, hey, can you guys build us a little database software that can manage this great idea we have? And they did. And at the beginning of 2018, we kind of launched it internally. And we told our employees that, hey, we're going to let you guys, when you work on a project, if you guys are profitable on that project, you guys are going to get a piece of that. And here's the system that we built for distributing that amount. And, it was a lot of excitement. They were grateful for the opportunity because they saw that there was an opportunity to, take home a piece of what they were doing.
Yeah.
And we launched in 2018, and we saw some, a really good turnaround in our profit margins for the next couple of years. And, even into 2020, even with COVID, we were able to, maintain good, solid profit margins by rewarding people for the work that they're doing. And then some of the key things that we found was that employees today, they just want to know where it's coming from. You hand them a check at a Christmas party, $500 or $1,000, it's more or less than it was last year. You're not really telling them anything. But when you said, okay, if you're profitable on the work that you're doing, you get a piece of that. They're going to try and find ways to increase those profit margins and increase the profitability. And they really love the transparency and the openness. And we also require feedback when we give them the bonus that, hey, it's not just, hey, here's a check. This amount came from this project. You did a great job on that. This amount came from this project. It wasn't so great. And then one of the things we also do is we tell our employees that we're going to share together, or we're going to win together, and we're going to lose together. So if you lose money on a project, you also take a piece of that hit.
Oh.
And that's motivating when people know that, hey, it's not just the company that's got to cover this. I've got to cover a piece of it too.
Yeah.
Some of those things went into the system, and we saw some great changes in employee behaviors. And so once we got to that point and we saw how well it worked for us, and we knew that there wasn't anything else out there, we said, you know what, this is a pretty cool little tool. Let's find out if anybody else would be interested in it. And we reached out to, a few of our neighboring companies and other companies we've worked with in the past, and asked them if they knew of anything out there like it. And across the board, nobody had any good solution, nor was there a software out there that handled this. So we said, you know what, we can be, we might be an engineering firm, but we can be innovative too.
Yeah.
Engineers are not notoriously known for being innovative, pretty conservative group. But we said, you know what, let's spin it out and launch it as a software platform. And we've, been pretty successful in kicking this off and getting it going, and introducing it. Primarily our focus, up front has been introducing this platform. You can call it profit sharing or a bonus program, but we've been introducing it mostly to engineering companies and construction companies, those that understand that each project, you've got to have a good profit margin on that project, and then all of that adds together to the overall company profit margin. So project-based companies have been the primary focus of our initial launch of the software.
Yeah. This is a great story. Entrepreneurship, right? Don't have the solution. It's painful. Spreadsheets are always like the impetus for a new product, right?
Exactly.
And then a bunch of engineers probably, you had to figure out what the code is and how to build it and what platforms. So you back-end database and all of that, but then people need to interact with it on the front end.
Yep.
I can imagine it was pretty fun.
It's been a blast.
Yeah.
I went to school to become a civil engineer. Never thought of doing anything else because I always loved that. Even growing up, I always loved math and science and thought, engineering is the way to go. But then I got involved in, the business side of engineering, and then even the business side of running a software company. And it's just absolutely it gets me up every day. I really enjoy doing what we're doing. And then, learning the new language, software versus civil engineering, they're completely different.
Yeah.
And working with a software developer, and we've been lucky to find a really great software developer that can actually speak our language, and he works from home in Parowan, Utah, and does a great job for us. So.
Very cool. So yeah, civil engineering, tricky, right? Because you're moving mountains and dirt and building roads and dams and infrastructure, and
Yep.
Just like you're remodeling your closet in your house for the layman, you're either on time and on budget or overtime and over budget, right?
Exactly.
And for you guys, the stakes are pretty high. If you screw it up,
Yes.
people aren't going to be very sympathetic, right?
No, not at all.
Yeah.
Not at all.
And at the same time, you've got commodities and all this other stuff that you don't have a lot of control over. And I imagine it gets a little bit hairy from time to time if you're going to make any money or possibly lose money.
Yeah. And there's a lot of competition out there. I mean, there's a lot of good firms here in Utah, and we really respect the other firms. And so, we need to be profitable, but we can't, go and gouge clients and do it too much. But so we have to maintain a good presence and make sure that we're doing good, honest work, and taking care of our clients. And then hopefully at the end of the day, there's just a little bit of profit on those projects. And then we love sharing it back with our team members. And that was kind of the big driver that was our culture. We loved sharing back. And the more we can share, it makes everybody happy. We love to do it. So that's why this was so important to us, was to take a little piece of what we're making and then give it back to the team. And it's really, really helped build that that teamwork mentality within our culture.
Yeah. So give us a quick rundown of how it actually works. There's a project that needs to be done, whether it's a municipality, a county, a city, or anyone, I guess. You win the bid and
Correct.
the project. And is that the point where you'll designate the team, the project manager, and then the software, the platform will begin working at that point?
Yep, that's exactly how it works. So you win the project, you get a fee from a client. That's your revenue that comes in when the project. We tell them that you get paid when the project is done. The client has paid us in full, and it's basically closed out. That's when you get your bonus. So at the end of a project, when all of that's done, or a phase of the project, they go into the software, fill out a little form in the software, and then that little form distributes each piece to the people that worked on that project. Yeah. And then when all of the forms, so for my company, we fill out a couple hundred different forms each time we've got a bonus. So it accumulates all of those, gives each employee a printout of, hey, this is where your bonus is coming from, and then we do a review with them, and so provide some really good feedback and it's real-time feedback on the work that they're doing, both on the project level and then on their performance side, how well they're doing overall.
Oh yeah, 2 birds, 1 stone.
Yeah, it's great.
Awesome. Yeah, so it's measurable and fast, and waiting 2 years to see what happened. How long does a mid-sized project last?
Typically for an engineering company, your mid-sized projects will last anywhere from 3 to 6 months. Some long projects will go a couple years. They're short projects that last just a couple weeks. So with that gamut of the length of the projects, we've found that you need to break out some of those longer duration projects into a couple of different phases, so you pay out a bonus more regularly. People respond better when their reward's coming close to the work they actually completed, and not waiting for a couple years to get a bonus from that. So
yeah, and when you're working on a team, whether it's sports or engineering or software, every once in a while there's like a key person or a key moment where they were the linchpin, whether it's the janitor or the CEO or anybody in between, and then it's kind of subjective, right? Like if that person wouldn't have made that one relationship or that one call, the whole thing might not have happened, but then it takes the entire team. How do you guys kind of factor in that?
It's a great question. And we leave it to the project manager. When we used our old bonus system, and us as the leadership group were trying to decide how big of a bonus to give our team members, it was tough because we didn't work with them on a daily basis. So we wanted to push that down to the project manager level, the guy that's in the trenches working with them on a day-to-day basis. And we tell them, you're going to get a certain percentage of the profits on this project, and it's up to you to decide how to distribute that. We're going to give you some guidelines. That's what the software does. We're going to give you some guidelines on how to do it, but at the end of the day, it's up to you. And you needed to make those decisions based on, like you said, the value that a certain person adds, not necessarily, hey, I worked 400 hours on the project, I should get the biggest bonus.
Yeah.
So we always encourage them to look at the value, not necessarily the number of hours worked.
Awesome. That makes it equitable.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah.
So you guys are pretty dialed in on what it takes to build infrastructure and cool things. You know what your profit margins are ideally. With software, kind of a whole new gambit, right?
Totally new.
And then now that you guys are kind of giving other firms and other engineers the option to purchase the software, how have you guys developed the business, as they say, on the software side?
On the software side, so I mean, we're early on in the startup stage. I mean, we've really only been in the market for a little bit over a year now. So it's been a lot of trial and error in this last year. So developing the business, really the primary piece initially for us was finding the right developer. We went overseas and tried a little bit of that and failed miserably. That's been one of the things that I've learned a lot, is that with software, it's a lot of trial and error. It takes a minute to get it right.
Yeah.
And then, building a team around us. So we have, one business partner. She's from North Carolina, has been involved in a few startups and understands the consulting side, the management consulting side. So she's been a great partner to us. So between her and myself, and we have a great assistant that does a lot of our client management, and then a software developer. That's our team right now, and these are all, I guess I should say, kind of half-time jobs for each of us. We still have our day jobs. I still do a lot of the engineering side of things, but there's going to come a point, and it's coming up fairly quickly, that we're going to get drug into this software world a lot more.
Yeah.
And we're looking forward to it. It's been a blast.
Yeah, absolutely. That's cool. And what are your goals for ourlinQ over the next 12 to 18 months?
Really, we just wanted to start funding its own way. Speaking as a engineering business owner that's funding a software company, that's where we want to get it. And, it's just getting new clients, getting new users. As the software has evolved over the last year and a half, it's kind of taken on a new life, like any software will. But as we've had different companies say, hey, can you do this and can you do this? We've made some changes, and it's opened it up to, it can work in a lot of different ways, not necessarily just for engineers and contractors. That's not our focus, but any company that wants to manage their bonus system, we can automate that. It's been kind of surprising. It wasn't our intent in building the software, but it just kind of happened that way. So now we have a platform that really can manage any sort of a bonus system very easily, just however you guys want to manage that. We have a great way that engineers and contractors can use, and we've built a really great story around that, and it really resonates because there's not a good solution out there. But the software has really changed to allow a lot broader use than just engineers and contractors.
Oh, that's great. A little bit of a Swiss Army knife then in what it can do.
Yeah. But again, our focus really, we will stay focused on engineering because that's what I know. And it's fun to help those companies out. There's challenges in the industry, and I love making a difference there. So. Yeah.
Couple more questions. So at this point, you've been eating your own dog food, as they say, and then others are using it. You've got enough data to kind of come up with a few case studies and like good stories, right? What are a few that stand out for you?
So I think, I'll just speak about a contractor that uses it, and they were one of our early adopters. They brought it on really early. And kind of the story that they had was it's been a company that hasn't really grown at all. They've just stayed about the same size for many, many years. And they didn't really want to grow. But what they found is they were just losing people over and over and over. Just couldn't keep good people on. And, they launched this and told their their well, I guess, so that's one thing. They were losing a lot of people. Another thing is that their profit margins were very low.
Yeah.
And because with the turnover, they just couldn't get anything really dialed in. So over the last couple of years, they've used the software. I had a conversation with our contact there, and she said that, they've seen some great changes. The system has now become part of the daily conversations. Hey, what can we do to be a little bit more profitable on this project? And one of the things that they always struggled with was they would always keep way too many people on staff. They wouldn't trim it down to fit the work that was necessary. And, instead of trying to find other things for them to do, they'd keep 5 or 6 guys when only 2 were needed. And they said that, they've made some really good changes, and they're managing their projects better. And they're turning, great profits on projects now that historically they would have barely broken even. And initially, they had 4 or 5 of their managers that had bought into it, and then 3 or 4 that were holding back. And now she says everybody's on board. And it's just become a topic of conversation on a regular basis. And it's really driving good behaviors with their whole team. They live in a small market, so they can't make clients mad. Yeah. So they're balancing it out. And she says it's changing the whole feel about the company. People are staying there. They're not losing people. She says it's crazy that just having this tool that now supports all these things we've always taught the people, hey, you got to do a good job on this and take care of your clients and, manage your teams well. Now we've got a tool that supports it and rewards it. It's really changing the whole culture there. So
that's great.
Yeah.
And I assume, with well-built tools that are automated and transparent and measurable, to your point, that story makes the employees feel better and You can talk until you're blue in the face about like periphery benefits and stuff, but money is usually the top one, and then they feel good, right?
Yeah.
I put in all this time and effort, and because there's not a lot of folks like you that are good at science and math and can build stuff, right? So it's a limited quantity of people, and then they get compensated accordingly. But I also assume it translates to the customers are also more happy.
And that was, when you talk about earning profits as a company, a lot of times you feel like, oh, to earn profits, you got to take advantage of a client. And, that's one of the messaging things we've had to always make sure, hey, we live in a small market. I'm from Richfield. That most of our work happens in rural communities throughout Utah. You can't go and tick off your neighbor by trying to gouge him for a big contract and expect to get more work in the area.
Yeah.
So we have to balance that out. We have to take care of our clients. Keep it reasonable. Take care of them. Make sure that they're top priority. And then if you make a little bit of profit, that's great.
Yeah.
So
Very
that's
cool.
you have to balance that out. It's been really important for us to make sure that message is still preached.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, this has been really fun for me. I love these stories where a company spins out of a non-traditional company, and if you guys aren't careful, you might build like a pretty big software company down in Richfield. Huh?
That's the hope.
Very cool. All right, so if folks are interested in the platform and the tool, how can they find it?
Ourlinq.com, ourlinq.com.
Very cool. All right, thank you, Ryan. Appreciate you driving up here, and congrats on the cool adventure you guys are on.
Yeah, it's been fun.
Thanks.
Appreciate the time.
You bet.